every series. So that starts with the 20 series Land Cruiser, and we even have a predecessor to that here, and goes all the way to the 200 series Land Cruiser. So we have pretty much one of everything. We're only missing a few. So you'll see a few blank spots, and I'll mention those ones to you as we do our tour.
That's awesome.
So the museum started because a gentleman named Greg Miller, who he founded the museum and got it all rolling. He went to Japan as part of Expedition 7 to pick up the Expedition 7 vehicles. And while they were in Japan, they went and visited a few different Toyota museums, thinking they're going to find this giant treasure chest of Land Cruisers in a Toyota museum. And it just doesn't exist. They had one or two miscellaneous ones. So he said, we need to have a Land Cruiser museum that appreciates these vehicles, and as a great learning experience. Even if you're not a Toyota guy, you can come here and learn about Land Cruisers, and anyone can come into this room and appreciate it. But if you're restoring a Land Cruiser, you could come here and open the doors and crawl underneath the truck and see what we hope is the most premier specimen of any one Land Cruiser. We're not 100% there yet, but some of these are the best ones that exist, undoubtedly. And in some cases, they're some of the only ones that exist. So we'll kind of go through there and share the collection with you and ask any questions.
Yeah.
25. And so the FJ25 would have been the first Land Cruiser that had mass production, and also the first Land Cruiser that came to the United States. And this Land Cruiser right here is the first one that came to the United States. So this exact truck is the very first Toyota Land Cruiser that Toyota sold. There's a beautiful row of 40s over there we'll go visit. But a few things you can easily pick out on these. They don't have a bezel around the headlights, so that's factory. They don't have, kind of the full patented 40 look that you notice. They have rounded out doors on the soft top model here, so a little bit rounded, and rounded wheel wells. So just a few little things. And there's a four-door variant, which is the 28 here. And this one is extremely rare. It's the only one I've ever seen. And this truck took about 3 years to acquire, and it came from Venezuela. So this truck just barely FJ45, so then you start with the 40 series, and this truck isn't particularly right in place, but it's just kind of cool. It fits the story of this little row here. And the 45 is a 40 series front end, so now you get the bezel, a little different frame and suspension, and this is a four-door wagon. And you could also get a 45 in a truck. Two different, this one is, I can't remember, 62, 64. This one is a 62, so it's a really early 40. And then a 67. You kind of start seeing things change. You go from the corrugated top that shared with like the 20 series to a solid hard top on the sides. So as the story rolls through, they just get a little more comfortable and a little nicer amenities. So you go from bench seats to a little bit nicer bench seats with more cushioning, to bucket seats with headrests, center consoles, nicer door handles, nicer windows, full hand crank windows with actual door cards inside. Whereas these ones are just metal, one's still a metal door. And collectability-wise, they're all popular, but some, a lot of people favor the later models just because they have a little nicer to drive. These are 3-arm calls with a tree, fun to drive, but kind of cool. These were built in Brazil, and so they were domestically produced in Brazil. And that's why you can get a four-door. And if you look closely, while everything's similar, there are a lot of weird body lines that you won't find on the Land Cruiser. And they did that. They're just a little bit different, but they were built under license, so it does say Toyota on it. 45s that the museum's going to have. There's one 45 that we don't have here. So that's that same longer wheelbase, but then it has the full size, so it's a troop carrier model, which would be really neat to have. There's a troopy over here I'll show you, but it's not the thing. But we got to back up a little bit. Toyota always had options. They were about having options for people. We've talked about short wheelbase, mid wheelbase, trucks, four-door wagons. But when the four-door wagon stopped in the 45 series, like the green one up front there, they had to have an option for people. So they always did. And even though the 40 series kept going, they canceled the wagon, so they had to come up with a new wagon. And we got the 50 series. And then particularly the 55 and the 56 was the two ways those came. To this day, they still use a lot of Land Cruisers. And they do mountain bike and river rafting tours in the Moab area. And the neat thing about this truck is not only is it like that picture, it's that truck. It's that exact vehicle that was used in their brochure.
Oh, that's cool.
And yeah, Greg was able to track this down. There was a gal in Moab that has owned it after she bought it from them and has owned it all these years. But really, drivetrain-wise, they're identical. I mean, lengths are different, but as far as the systems, they're the same drivetrain, same motor. But that longer wheelbase is nice, but just people never fell in love with them. So kind of cool, and it's just been used for some different promotional stuff here in town. again, Toyota's a solution provider, so when they're done in 1980 with a wagon, they're still making the 40 series all these years. They're a utility vehicle, but their wagon, they've got to have an answer. So in 1980, the FJ60 comes out in the 60 series, more specifically. In the US, we got that as an FJ60. So it's got that same 2F gas motor that the 40 has and the 4-speed. But that came in 3 variants, a 60, a 61, and a 62. And there's just little changes across the board. 61s we never had in the US. There's going to be a turbo diesel model. And then there are 62s. We actually don't have the perfect FJ62 like a US model in here yet, so that's one on the list. But kind of some cool trucks. One of these, this guy right here. This is an HJ60, a Canadian spec, or sorry, a Japanese spec HJ60. This one also came from the collector in Japan, but if you peek inside, it not only has super low miles, but when I got these in the US, which is unfortunate because they are so cool. But there's a lot of people importing them. Quite a few of these came from Japan, were imported, in fact, nearly all of them, or South and Central America. There's a couple here from Australia we'll talk about too. So really cool though, soft top, still can pull down the windshield, vinyl seats, I mean just super removable tops, but non-turbo and turbo variations. So this could be a gas or diesel non-turbo, and the 74's got a 13 VT in this case. Really cool motor and a little turbo diesel. These are fun trucks to blaze around in. And it's got a removable fiberglass top, so it's kind of a neat package. And then pickup trucks. So this is 75, and you could get a 75 in a truck museum, and that's these. These are brand new, well, 2015, but 7 and 8 miles respectively. GRJ, a 76 and a 79. So in the 30th anniversary, which was 2015 of the Land Cruiser, of the 70 series, it started in 85. With the 30th anniversary, they reintroduced these trucks in Japan only. They were still making Land Cruisers and the 70 series in many markets, but they weren't doing it in Japan, so they re-released them. And these have a 4.0 gas motor, so just like the same motor a 4Runner, FJ Cruiser, Tacoma has of similar vintage. Just kind of cool. I'd prefer diesel, but it's neat that they were offering this in a 4.0 gas. Really though, we need a kind of buzz. We're gonna skip over this guy. This series comes out in 90, and it was a big shift for Toyota, and a lot of Land Cruiser owners didn't love it because this thing was the devil. And then, as these things got out on the trail and tried and true, they're awesome platforms. They do have IFS, but it's really burly stuff. I think this is the one he took on our trip. Does that sound right, Alex? Remember that?
Yes, sir.
This would have been the one he had. So this is a really beautiful build, but they're also early and late model 200. So the dashes are a little different headlight configurations, and the motor got beefed up a little bit too. So these have around 235 horse, and these got 285, as I recall, right in that range. A little different motor configuration, and a 4-speed turned into a 5-speed. So just cool usability things, nothing super crazy. And then outside the US though, they still stuck with that solid axle. And this is so it's a 105. And the 105 has a solid front end on it still. Didn't get the IFS. And that came in different variations, diesels, and this is a gas model. So it's a gas model. So we got a 5.7 liter. It's got 381 horse, so like massive power increase over the hundreds and any previous Land Cruiser. And that's what the one down there on the end is. And they have a 6 or 8 speed transmission depending on the year. And this particular truck is an Australian spec, and this has a 1VD FTV. This is a 4.5 liter twin turbo diesel, factory Toyota. So these trucks are awesome. And power-wise, it's real similar to the 3UR, and speed-wise, done a little drag racing with them side by side. But fuel economy, this diesel rocks. So it's performance spec-wise, it's not the most amazing diesel, but they just work. Reliability-wise, they're pretty stalwart. So this truck came over from Australia. It's done a lot of mapping in Australia. HEMA is a Australian mapping company that does off-road maps. They came over to the United States and did a Continental Divide expedition where they mapped the Continental Divide from Alaska down through Mexico and used this truck for that trip. And then it was able to stay and be purchased and end up in the museum. Kind of a neat end to a cool truck. Then done a lot of traveling. So that's really the Land Cruiser story. This back row here is all. Its name is Fernway, and that is the only four-wheel vehicle that is driven on all 7 continents, and crossed 6 of them in fact. So it drove on Antarctica, but it drove across 6 of the continents. So really neat truck. And the other 4 are really best worded as kind of support vehicles for the Expedition 7 journey. This one here, it's named Mateship, and it went on 6 continents. It did everything but Antarctica. It did not go down to Antarctica. So these are kind of a really neat story. You can learn, like I said, at expedition7.com and learn about where the trip went and what we did and how we got there. It was pretty cool. And so these 2 trucks on the end are these V8 turbo diesel trucks. So that one kind of got left behind and shipped home, and we built this one in Australia, the VDJ79. So this has got that V8 turbo diesel, and that's one of the first 4-door models that came to Australia. It's got locking disc front rear, as do the rest of them. The shops that were doing the different parts, and then I flew in and actually took the truck around to get all those parts installed. So I flew into Australia. This was a kind of a bare bones truck, and I went to the canopy place. It was a status symbol to have a Land Cruiser. It's an important part of the story because people want to have a vehicle that looked like a Land Cruiser because they are a status symbol to this day in a lot of markets. If you own a Land Cruiser, it's the flagship vehicle of Toyota. It's a very nice vehicle. So they were taking other vehicles with other parts and building them to look like a Land Cruiser, making these kind of homemade sheet metal kits. So if you get underneath there's very little Toyota drivetrain on this whole SUV, if you will. So you can see all the things that kind of look like a Land Cruiser. The white top, the bezels, but they're Blizzards. They're not Land Cruisers. And drivetrain-wise, yeah, they share a lot of stuff with them. And these were built really low numbers by Toyota, or at least Toyota's body company. And these were built as kind of a soft sell to see what a modern-looking Land Cruiser would look like on an older drivetrain. So this is a 97. But if you look at what's right next door to it, you can see a lot of similarities to when we get the FJ Cruiser. The Toyota Marquis. Guys have taken these and done all sorts of awesome, extreme, and amazing trips with them. Built them into desert racers, built them into rock crawlers. They're a very cool vehicle. A little different lineup. They do share a lot of parts with a Prado, so outside the U.S. I call this one Frankenstein. I don't know where exactly it got that name, but it's appropriate because this truck has everything. So this has got a diesel put in it. It's a total mutt. 60 series axles, probably 80 series parts, but it's the best of a true like utilitarian truck. This has a FLIR camera, so it's got basically, night vision, if you will, on a fold-down camera. Both remote control that and a remote control spotlight. It's got like more lights and switches and instruments and converters, inverters. This thing is like a total apocalypse vehicle. And a really neat truck. It works. It just works real well too. This is a 74. It should be a 2-door. But this was built in Japan, again by Toyota's body company, and not in the BJ73 non-turbo, but that one ran in the Outback Challenge. Greg and Jeremiah went over there and raced that one in the Outback Challenge. Kind of a cool, really typical Australian build. Lights high on the bumper, the antenna. It's a neat truck. Tells a cool story. Across the globe are used for everything. I've seen them as hearse. I've seen tow trucks. You have a fire truck here. This is a 56 fire truck. This is a radio, like a antenna repair vehicle for a television station. So if you go look at the back, there's a full workstation with computers and testing equipment back there. But yeah, police vehicles, ambulances, I think I said tow trucks, but around the world you'll find them as everything, which is kind of cool. 10 was used by military forces, most predominantly the Japanese Defense Force. This is their Japanese vehicle. You'll notice it has a lot of similarities to like a US civilian mega cruiser. So if you look in there, well, thanks for joining us here at the Land Cruiser Heritage Museum. You can learn more about it at landcruiserhm.com. So Land Cruiser HM is in Heritage Museum, and you can learn more about the Expedition 7 trip at expedition7.com.
And there's a link down in the description down below. I'll say that again. If you go down in the description down below, there's a link for you guys. You can check it out. Thank you so much for showing us around.
Glad to be here.
Super good to meet you.
Glad you could come.
You have a wealth of knowledge about